I'm a 38-year-old man, an engineer by profession, and a father to a 6-year-old son. My wife and I have been married for 9 years, and from the outside, our life probably looked pretty standard. We own a modest house, drove decent cars, and went on occasional vacations when our schedules allowed. But, as I recently learned, appearances can be deceiving. It all started about a year ago. My wife, a marketing executive, began taking frequent business trips to the West Coast. At first, I didn't think much of it. Her job had always required some travel, though it was never this frequent. She said the company was expanding, and her presence was crucial for securing new clients. She assured me it was just a temporary thing, a stepping stone for her career. I didn't question it. Why would I? We'd built our life on trust, or so I thought. The trips started becoming more frequent. Every month, sometimes twice. I noticed she'd come back looking unusually refreshed, happier even. I chalked it up to her enjoying the success of her hard work. But there were cracks if I really looked. She was less present at home, emotionally and physically. Little things, forgetting to call me during her trips, missing school events for our son, were brushed off as part of the job. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But then there was the credit card statement. A few months ago, I noticed charges that didn't align with her explanation of business expenses. Luxury spa treatments, expensive dinners, hotel stays far more extravagant than her company's usual accommodations. When I asked her about it, she waved it off, claiming her company had reimbursed her and that I shouldn't worry. Still, something felt off. The breaking point came 2 months ago when she accidentally left her laptop open at home. I don't usually pry, but something gnawed at me that day. Her email was open, and I couldn't resist a glance. What I found shattered my world. Emails. Dozens of them. Conversations with a man. Let's call him M. They weren't even discreet. They talked about vacations they'd taken together, places they planned to visit next, and even joked about her double life. My stomach churned as I read their plans to spend the next trip entirely together, complete with photos of them at the beach, his arms around her. It wasn't a business trip. It was a second life. I confronted her that night. I'll never forget the look on her face when I showed her the printed emails. For a moment, she tried to deny it, but the evidence was undeniable. Then, her demeanor changed. She became defensive, even entitled. She claimed I'd been too boring and unavailable as a husband, that I'd driven her to this. She said she deserved to be happy and that I had no right to judge her. I was stunned. My wife, someone I thought I knew better than anyone, was blaming me for her affair. She wasn't apologetic. She was angry I'd found out. Maybe if you'd been more ambitious, I wouldn't have needed this, she sneered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. But something snapped inside me. I told her I wanted a divorce. Her entitlement didn't stop there. Over the following weeks, she refused to move out of the house, claiming it was hers too, and that I had no right to throw her out. She tried to manipulate our son, telling him I was being mean to mommy. She even had the audacity to suggest we keep things as they are for the sake of appearances. Her words. I can't uproot my life just because you're upset, she said one night. Think about our son. Think about what people will say. I wasn't having it. I contacted a divorce lawyer the very next day. What followed was a legal and emotional battle that tested every ounce of patience I had. She refused to agree to any terms, insisting she wanted primary custody of our son and half of everything, despite the fact that her affair had caused this. My lawyer, thankfully, was sharp and thorough. We gathered evidence, the emails, photos, even a private investigator's report confirming her affair and the lavish trips she took using our joint funds. During mediation, her true colors shone. She demanded spousal support, arguing she'd sacrificed her career to build our family. This was laughable. She'd been working full-time the entire marriage, earning more than me most years. When the mediator pointed this out, she erupted, claiming I was vindictive and trying to ruin her life. Her dirty tricks didn't stop there. She tried to paint me as an unfit father, accusing me of being too busy with work to care for our son. She even went as far as coaching our son to say he wanted to live with her, something I only discovered when he broke down crying during one of our conversations, confused and scared. The final straw came during the custody hearing. My lawyer presented the evidence, laying out her affair, the misuse of funds, and her attempts to manipulate our son. The judge didn't hold back, reprimanding her for her behavior and granting me primary custody. She was given visitation rights, but her attempt to take everything from me had backfired spectacularly. And I wasn't done. Using the evidence of her financial misconduct, I filed a separate civil suit to recover the funds she'd spent on her affair. It was a long process, but ultimately, the court ruled in my favor. She was ordered to repay a significant portion of the money she didn't have. Her lavish lifestyle crumbled. Her affair partner, M, disappeared the moment the judgment was handed down. Turns out, he wasn't interested in supporting her now that she wasn't living the high life. She tried to come crawling back, apologizing and claiming she made a mistake. But I was done. I told her in no uncertain terms that she'd made her bed and now had to lie in it. It's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized. Life isn't perfect, but it's better. My son and I have adjusted to our new normal, and I've started to rebuild the pieces of my life she tried to destroy. After the dust settled, I had time to reflect on everything that had happened. To be honest, it wasn't just the betrayal that cut deep. It was the entitlement, the sheer audacity of someone who thought they could live a double life and still have it all. But the thing about entitlement is that it blinds people to the consequences of their actions. I'll admit, there were moments when I doubted myself. Was I being too harsh? Would my son grow up resenting me for splitting our family apart? But every time I had those thoughts, I'd think back to those emails, the lies she told, and the way she tried to weaponize our child. That wasn't love. That wasn't family. It was selfishness, plain and simple. One of the most satisfying parts of all this was watching her facade crumble. She'd spent years crafting this image of the perfect wife, mother, and career woman. Our mutual friends had no idea what was happening until I started opening up. At first, she tried to spin the story in her favor, claiming I was a controlling husband who didn't understand her needs. But when the truth came out, thanks to my lawyer's airtight case and the mountain of evidence, it was like a domino effect. People started distancing themselves from her. Friends who once admired her couldn't look her in the eye. Even her family, who had initially taken her side, began to see through her lies. Her parents called me to apologize for their earlier behavior, saying they'd had no idea what she was capable of. The fallout didn't stop there. Her job, the high-powered position she used to justify all those business trips, gone. Turns out, using company funds for personal trips and fabricating client meetings doesn't sit well with corporate HR. She was fired shortly after the custody hearing, and with no income and a hefty court-ordered repayment to me, she had to sell her car and move into a tiny apartment. And the affair partner? M was a ghost. From what I heard through the grapevine, he'd moved on to someone else, leaving her to clean up the mess she'd made. The irony wasn't lost on me. She threw away a stable life, a loving family, and a secure future for someone who couldn't even stick around when things got tough. As for me, I focused on moving forward. Therapy helped both for me and my son. I wanted to make sure he didn't carry the weight of this mess on his small shoulders. He's resilient, though. Kids are amazing like that. Slowly, we built new routines, weekend hikes, movie nights, and cooking together. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Professionally, I threw myself into my work. My boss, who'd been supportive throughout the divorce, offered me a promotion that came with a slight pay bump and more flexibility. It was a godsend, allowing me to spend more time with my son while still providing for us. There's a sense of satisfaction in knowing I didn't let her break me. She underestimated me, thinking I'd roll over and accept her lies, her manipulations, her entitlement. But life doesn't work that way. Actions have consequences, and when you hurt the people who love you most, there's a price to pay. To anyone reading this who's been betrayed or mistreated, don't let it define you. Take the pain, the anger, and the heartbreak, and use it to fuel your comeback. There's no greater revenge than living well and proving that you're stronger than the people who tried to tear you down. And seriously, if you want more stories like this, subscribe. Trust me, I've got plenty more where this came from.